Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I explore not only how technology is transforming the world and marketplaces and entire industries, but also how individuals are leveraging technology to make a difference. And today's guest has done just that. One of the greatest gifts that we can all give anyone is time. And I often say that time is the new currency. And I also believe that investing time into young people and helping them unlock their potential is crucial. But let's look at the education system for a moment, which must be incredibly daunting for students because they're studying for jobs that don't actually exist yet. And by that, I mean the rise of artificial intelligence, blockchain, 5G, IoT, all these technologies are going to create new roles. The days of staring at an Excel spreadsheet are going to disappear. But students are often sent to the best schools and universities all over the world. But when they have picked up those skills and got those qualifications that are going to set them up for life, they leave that town behind. So what if students were to stay in that town and give back to the area that gave them those skills and build a community? That is exactly what Tiffany Yau is doing with Fulphil in Philadelphia. It's a fantastic story, and I don't want to reveal too many spoilers about her desire to not only make a difference, but help others make a difference in Philadelphia and build a Silicon Valley of impact on the East Coast, because there's so much more to this story and it is incredibly inspirational. But before I reveal too much, I'm going to ask you to buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your earballs all the way to Philadelphia. We'll grab a Philly cheesesteak and then we'll go speak with Tiffany. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Tiffany. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Hi, Neil. Thank you so much for having me on the show. My name is Tiffany Yau. I'm 23. I just graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with my undergraduate and master's, and I'm also the CEO of Fulphil, which is an organization that's leading Philadelphia's social entrepreneurship scene amongst the youth. And we recently won the Greater Philadelphia Social Innovation Award. During my time at Penn, I received the Outstanding Service Award. And recently, we've also been nominated for the Sustained PHL Social Impact Award.
I'm so glad you mentioned those awards there, and it's so obvious to me to see how you've been so successful and getting that deserved recognition. But for people tuning in and just hearing about Fulphil for the very first time, could you maybe set the scene and tell listeners about exactly what Fulphil is and also the mission that you're on?
Yeah, most definitely. So at Fulphil, we teach social entrepreneurship to high school students with the goal of inspiring them to create an impact in their future careers, regardless of what they decide to pursue. So we're not really telling everyone to go be an entrepreneur. I don't think everyone should go be an entrepreneur, but it's so important to have that impact-driven mindset in today's time with whatever it is that we decide to pursue. So our vision is really to live in a world where everyone is empowered to create a lasting impact, no matter how big or small.
Oh, that sounds like my kind of world. It really does. One of the things I always try and do on this tech podcast as well is learn more about the inspiration and the story behind any company. So can I ask that you describe those early days of Fulphil at UPenn and how your university experience actually inspired you to kickstart this nonprofit?
Yeah, most definitely. The journey has been wild. It has been such a challenge to create Fulphil from the start, especially with what our mission is today. It was really something that I was passionate about at the time when I was at Penn. I was a student and was juggling between stacked morning classes to leaving to golf practice 5 days of the week. I was actually recruited to play for the women's team at Penn. I was captain my senior year, but I was doing that and also running different social entrepreneurship initiatives on campus while kind of finding some time here and there for Fulphil. And so around this time was when I applied for my master's program, which was my decision to really use as an opportunity to help me focus in on Fulphil and really buckle down to find time to focus on creating this dream of inspiring more youth in a city that I really care about to pursue social impact. So I guess I'd love to say that Fulphil started in my campus apartment my senior year one afternoon, but it was just Fulphil kind of came to me through going in between everything that I was doing at the time. So it's really been inspired by bits and pieces from my Penn experience. And really the biggest thing is that I noticed that a meager number of my colleagues were staying in Philly beyond graduation. And I find it so interesting because Philadelphia is such a college town. There are so many bright students from around the world who would come to Penn and call Philly their home for 4 years, get their education, and leave without giving nothing back to the city that's really transformed their lives. And the talent retention situation, it's definitely been improving over the years. But even though this is a phenomenon that definitely occurs in many developing cities, I found this strangely unsettling, and I really wanted to do something about it. So I guess I personally really grew to love the city and came to call it my home over the past years after finding what it is that I'm really passionate about. And I found out that there's so many different resources here in Philly, in the impact scene especially. And I realized that it's so strange that people don't know about this. So Fulphil is basically an initiative to try to get students more involved in their local community, to realize the amount of access, the amount of resources that they actually have that perhaps they think may be beyond them. But it's actually really accessible. And we started out working with college students with organizing pitch competitions, but we realized that we had to refocus because it actually starts much earlier on in high school when people here in Philly are kind of really more developing in their stages to kind of figuring out what it is that they want to do. So, yeah.
Now, you have been on an incredible journey, but I've got to ask, here in 2019, how many Ivy League schools does Fulphil have a present at right now, just to help people understand just what a massive impact you're making?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So actually, my previous work before Fulphil involved all the Ivy League universities. So that was actually with the Holt Prize Foundation, where basically I led this thing called Holt Prize Ivy to basically be a pitch competition amongst every Ivy League university and ultimately culminate for one final round where the winning team can go to the next round to participate to win $1 million in seed capital. But basically, that was kind of my work prior to Fulphil, but I still have many connections at these different Ivy League universities. So a lot of our mentors are actually sourced from the connections that I've made from this initiative that I created. So the mentors are speaking with the students who we're connecting them still with to date are from these Ivies. But the biggest presence is really from Penn, just because went to Penn, from Penn, definitely a lot of students want to be involved with something that came out of their own school as well. And so most of our staff members here at Fulphil are actually from Penn. So we try our best to always give like good advice and feedback to students who are also even applying to college. And yeah.
And we're going to have people listening today all over the US and indeed all over the world. So a question I've got to ask is, do you think there is a real need for Fulphil in the Philly area specifically? And why do you think that is?
Yeah, most definitely. So I guess, you know, I'm also not sure if you want to include this as well, but I guess I really see Philly as a Silicon Valley of impact. most people usually think, like engineers go to Silicon Valley and like the business-minded people go to New York and DC. But I think that the real change makers are really here in the city that started it all for the US especially. And so with that, we hear too often of young people coming and leaving Philly for other cities, but most aren't actually aware of the vast resources that Philadelphia has to offer right here. So I guess that's one part. And the second is actually, it ties in a bit with some research that I did during my time at Penn. It's really the notion that access is everything. And so over 72% of high school students in the US want to start their own businesses that make a difference in the world. And it turns out that here in Philadelphia, it's 80%. But the thing is that over 62% of high school students aren't even offered a course or any kind of resource in entrepreneurship. And so because of that, most are usually unaware that social entrepreneurship exists. Usually when we ask them in workshops or information sessions, they ask us, oh, is that social networking for entrepreneurship? But, it's like, oh, we're like, oh, not really. But when we really tell them what it's about, they're really just so captivated, and their eyes are really opened at the fact that, wow, I can do something about something like what I really care about. I can really make a difference. And so I think lack of exposure really delays and limits one's potential to realize and pursue their dreams and goals. So these are the two main things why specifically Philadelphia is such a great place for Fulphil to start with.
Oh, that is so fantastic to hear, such those stats and how many people, such a high percentage of people, and how they're motivated to make a difference with their life. It's fantastic. It really is. So those kind of students that you're working with there, can you tell me a little bit more about the day-to-day work that you're doing with them?
Yeah. So also, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The students we have, they are absolutely amazing. And if it's okay, if they're listening to this as well, I really appreciate all of you. You are super amazing. And so I guess even our speakers and what we like to call our change makers and residents have said this, but I honestly do feel like I and everyone on our team has inherited a bunch of little brothers and sisters just working with them. And so it's really the best working with them, and we learn quite a lot from them. So we typically begin our day starting off with some icebreakers, maybe in the morning as well. It's a little slow, so we try to have like a little dance party to get them loose and started for the day. Then we go on to listening to our first Changemaker in Residence. So our Changemaker in Residence program is basically where we bring in local and global leaders in their space who are making a difference with their work. So, for instance, we've hosted people who are recognized and affiliated with like the World Economic Forum, Ashoka, who've gotten investment from Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, Forbes 30 Under, and so on. And there's also lots of local rising leaders who've been recognized in like Inc. 500 too. So it's just like really a great opportunity for these students to listen to these mentors. So these people, they really instill life lessons about their successes and challenges in their work and what it really means to be a good leader and really a good entrepreneur. Our students are really, our students really ask thought-provoking questions as well. But essentially, we're really trying to teach them that growth mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset. And so we've kind of created this concept called the Fulphil social entrepreneurial mindset, which we really define as consisting of traits from like creative problem solving skills, leadership, collaboration, compassion, and resilience. And so everything that we teach them, of course, we also have the hard skills from like, what's your market strategy? What's your competitive landscape? All that fun stuff that we have to know as entrepreneurs, but along with the hard skills and technical things, we really teach them that the hard and soft skills are necessary to become a successful entrepreneur. For instance, you know, on our first day of the program, that we teach them how to make a LinkedIn profile. So now they have heard from 30 speakers and they have 30 plus connections on LinkedIn. So like really kind of focusing on that and instilling that impact lens. So not really just teaching them what it means to be an entrepreneur, but really a change maker. So yeah, and I think because they listen from so many different speakers as well, it's something that, you know, we can teach them so many different things, but ultimately these 30 speakers really share similar overlapping lessons. You know, myself, my team members, we can continue to talk their ears off all day about this, like different lessons that sometimes it's hard to really take in. But when you hear this from many different people around you in different ways, they really see bits and pieces of truth to really motivate them to pursue their businesses.
I love what you're doing here and how you're focusing on those real world results as well, especially in areas that education traditionally just doesn't touch. And it's stuff that we all take for granted and we all have to do. So that's great work on that. But you also mentioned there could be a few people tuning in just to listen. So are there any shout outs you want to give or any words of encouragement to any of your students?
No, thank you. No, our students, they are so active in terms of finding different resources. So I always try to send them over at different kinds of podcasts as well too. So keep it up. I really, I guess, keep it up. Anyone who's listening, who's just starting their business, is a young person doing their business, it's always really challenging, but sometimes you just got to stay resilient and really remember why you're doing what you're doing. So, yeah.
Another question I was going to throw in there as well, because let's say we are talking to people, or there'll be people listening all over the world, and there'll be people in their own educational systems in every corner of the world. Is there any advice that you would offer to those people who are listening to what you've done here, what you've achieved, and how you're giving back to your local community, and they want to do the same? What would be the biggest lessons that you've learned and you would possibly pass on to those people listening?
The biggest thing I would want to say is really investing in young people. I think one of our speakers, he actually is recognized in Inc. 500's ranking system just recently with his company, but he spoke with our students and he mentioned that the most valuable thing that you can give anyone is your attention. So I think that especially with youth, you know, so often we tend to kind of become a little bit ignorant or like disregard, like, and just be unaware of how much potential that they really have. And usually people, like young people, they really want to take initiative to do things that are meaningful and give back. I believe that if you're someone who wants to get into this space, just starting off is just really helping people along the way is one of the biggest things, because I think community is just so important because in the end, it all comes down to collaboration when people work together. And I guess like in the more cliched way of saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I guess with that, it's just so important to invest in youth in that way. So even if you don't know how you might be able to help, always just put it out there that you want to help in any way that you can. I think the biggest thing is just putting that out sometimes, because often like we won't even know, but you know, you never know what that will do for you even down the line. So I guess this is kind of just advice for how to make an impact in general. Not even just like starting something, but it goes such a long way.
Fantastic advice. It really is. And before you came on the show today, I did do a little bit of research on Fulphil, and I came across the Fulphil the Fulphil Fellowship and the on-campus student ambassador program. Can you just expand a little bit on that and the kind of work you're doing there?
Yeah, I guess so I guess about the Changemaker Fellowship program, this is something that we internally call our Empowered to Fulfill model. So like really empowerment is giving people the opportunity to make something more out of it. So we take this fellowship program as a way to promote access and opportunity amongst youth. So first, regarding access in this Changemaker Fellowship, we provide scholarship to under-resourced students who otherwise would not be able to afford being at our program. And so we achieve this through, for instance, just like major gifts and fundraising initiatives. But regarding opportunity, which is more in line with that whole Changemaker Fellowship process, it's how we target high school students. There's no easy way to find high school students in general for any program. We usually call it like the preschool flyer syndrome, where, you know, the flyer will go in the backpack, but it doesn't go back to the parents. And so we try to hire college ambassadors to teach social entrepreneurship to high school students to attract them to our programming. So that's where the Changemaker Fellowship happens. But in addition, we also have a junior Changemaker Fellowship program. So in addition to our ambassadors recruiting for us, once our high school students complete our programming, they'll be equipped to teach and refer their peers to our program. So we're really not just about having them learn all the hard and soft skills, but really having them build capacity, so then we have our students learn, do, and really pay it forward.
And what value do you hope that you're going to provide students throughout the program, and what do you want them to walk away with at the end of it?
Yeah, most definitely. So I guess there's so many things. Honestly, I just say that social entrepreneurship can teach people so much. I think really compassion is the biggest thing. You know, a lot of times I think people confuse compassion with empathy. You know, I think empathy is like, I really understand what you're going through. I've been through it, all that. Compassion is like a little bit less of going through it. You haven't gone through it. You don't truly understand, but you're going to do your best to try to and help. And so I think always developing that compassionate mindset is really important for students, for youth, because these people are our future, who are going to shape what the world is going to look like for us. And being able to have that compassionate mindset, to really care about why you're doing it, how you really questioning yourself, how you can help in whatever you do. I think that's so important. So the biggest value is really compassion.
And of course, we all have to sacrifice something to follow our dreams and follow our success. What about golf, Tiffany? Have you retired from the golf game? Do you miss it at all?
Thanks for asking. I have not played in quite a while, honestly. I started when I was 8, yeah. And so right now, many years have passed by, but I think it's been a good ride. My main goal is really just to play golf in college, and I guess I was able to do that, and I'm I'm really happy to be where I am and to be able to fulfill that goal. But I guess I try to golf here and there when I can. Try to go out and support the women's team when I can as well too, to watch their tournaments. But yeah.
Well, before I let you go, could I just ask that you, if anybody listening anywhere in the world would like to get in touch with you, support Fulphil's mission, or maybe they've got a few questions they just want to ask you about your journey and feel inspired by your story today, what's the best ways of doing that?
Most definitely. So I guess the best way to get in touch with us for any questions is going to hello@ful-phil.org. Fulphil actually does not have a dash, but we have a dash for our URL. So just letting you know. And I guess the easiest way to support us is actually We are affiliated as an organization on Amazon Smile. So, if you go to Amazon Smile and click on Fulphil, we can receive 0.5% of your purchase. It's not much, but it adds up after a while. That's the easiest way, especially with today's age of everyone ordering online, consumerism and all that great stuff. But, follow us on social media. Our handle is Fulphil, FULPHIL _Philly, PHILLY. If you know a high school student, please email us to refer them. If you know a high school who's looking for something to work with, we're always interested, and we're putting together a curriculum as well, hopefully to publish by the end of this year. So please keep an eye out for that if you want to learn how you can start your own business.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I'll put all those links that you mentioned on the blog post that will accompany this episode on my website over at techblogwriter.co.uk. There was so much value in this conversation today. And one of the points that you hit at quite early on in our conversation was about that people come to university towns, they learn, they get the skills that they need. Those skills transform their life, but then they move on to somewhere else. So what I love about what you're doing there is how you're helping people give back to the city that transform their life with those skills and actually play a part in building that Silicon Valley of impact that you've got there in Philadelphia. It really is an inspirational story. I want to follow this story closely. I hope to get you back on in the future and find out how you're going. But more than anything, a big thank you for joining me today, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Neil. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time and all that you do to really highlight important work.
Wow. As someone that spends far too long looking at negative media headlines and that the world is a big scary place, and let's face it, many aspects of the media love to demonise young people too. And for those reasons alone, Tiffany was a real breath of fresh air with her optimism and desire to make a difference, and also encourage others to do the same in Philadelphia and help build that Silicon Valley of impact in Philadelphia, rather than just getting the first train out after graduating. And using technology to encourage social entrepreneurship and equip students with skills to thrive and survive in a digital age. Man, that is the inspirational stuff right there. So a big thank you to Tiffany for coming on and sharing that story with us today. As for everyone listening, if her story inspired you, please reach out to her. And if you have any comments, if you're trying to make a difference in your part of the world with technology too, wherever it is that you're listening, please email me directly, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. And for any students out there that are signing up to those LinkedIn platforms, you can find me at Neil C. Hughes on there too. But that's it for another episode. So more than anything, a big thank you to everybody for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.